She thought she was selling her daughter to survive. But the man who took her and never treated her like something bought, only something cherished. And before death could take her peace, she gave her child a second chance at something she never had: love. The girl was barefoot when she arrived, and the wind took that as invitation. It bit at her ankles, tangled her hair, stung her cheeks raw. Her dress, once white, now hung off her like a worn rag, but she didn't cry. Not when her mother handed her off. Not when the wagon pulled away. Not when the stranger in the wide hat and dust-cracked boots looked at her like she was a riddle he hadn't expected to be asked. Her name was Clara. She was 9, and she didn't belong to herself anymore. Abigail West was still coughing when she pressed a single, rag-wrapped coin into the rancher's palm. "You take her," she whispered, voice wet with blood she no longer tried to hide. "She's good, strong, smarter than me." Her back bent inward with the weight of dying, but her eyes, gray and rimmed in red, never left the girl's face. "Just don't let her end up like I did." Then she turned and walked away, one step at a time, like her body might give out if she rushed. She never looked back. Clara didn't either. Looking back was for people who had something left behind. Bo Fletcher watched the woman go until the dust took her. He didn't say a word, didn't need to. The child beside him didn't ask anything, didn't flinch when he offered his hand. She didn't take it, but she followed him when he turned. That was enough for now. The ranch sat quiet against the edge of the hills, fenced by splintered wood and silence. No dogs barked, no chickens clucked. Just the creak of a windmill turning too slow and the long, dry scrape of gate hinges as Bo pushed them open. "You hungry?" he asked, not expecting an answer. Clara didn't give one, but her eyes darted toward the house, toward the thin column of smoke curling from the chimney, and Bo understood. He fixed her a plate without asking what she liked: beans, cornbread, and boiled potatoes. She ate without manners, fast and quiet, like someone who'd learned not to linger too long near food that wasn't promised. Bo sat across from her, arms crossed, eyes steady but unreadable. He said nothing until she wiped her mouth on her sleeve and leaned back like she might be done. "I didn't buy you," he said. She didn't answer. "I took you." Still silence. "That means you can leave if you want. I won't stop you." At that her eyes lifted, large, dark, and unreadable. "But I'd rather you stay." He didn't smile, didn't soften his voice, just stood and took her empty plate, and from then on she knew the rules. The next few days passed like pages without print. Clara didn't speak unless spoken to, and even then her replies were nods or small shrugs. Bo didn't push. He showed her where the water pump was, how to feed the hens, which fences needed mending, and when she trailed him like a shadow, he let her. The girl had no room for fear, only observation. She watched how he treated the horses, firm but never cruel, how he spoke to the cows as if they might one day answer back, how his hands, rough as gravel, could still untangle a bird's broken wing without breaking it further. She slept in the loft above the barn. Said she liked it better than the house. Said the house was too quiet, too full of ghosts. Bo didn't argue. Some nights when the wind whistled through the rafters and the moon made the hay glow silver, she cried, never loud, just the kind of crying that clutched your chest from the inside and left you breathless. Bo never went up, but come morning there'd be fresh biscuits and honey waiting on the fence post just outside the loft's hatch. She never said thank you. But he never stopped leaving them. It wasn't until the rain came that something shifted. A bad storm rolled in from the east, thunder cracking so loud it rattled nails in the walls. Clara had never heard thunder like that. She didn't sleep in the barn that night. She didn't ask. Just showed up on Bo's porch, blanket clutched tight, cheeks pale. "Inside's warmer," he said simply, stepping aside. She stood near the hearth like a statue, watching the flames dance, eyes wide and hands stiff. Bo made her tea, chamomile and mint, and handed it over without fanfare. She didn't sip it right away, just held the mug close to her chest like it might guard her heart. Then, after a long stretch of silence, she said her first full sentence since arriving. "My ma's gonna die, ain't she?" Bo didn't lie. "Yeah," he said. Clara nodded once. "She said I was too much trouble, that's why she sold me." She didn't sell you. She gave me away. That's different. How? He let the question hang there unanswered. Some truths took time, and some truths weren't for him to give. Days blurred, the storm passed, the land dried, but something between them had changed. Clara still didn't smile much, but she stopped flinching when he came near. She asked questions about the cattle, the windmill, why the rooster crowed when it did. She learned to braid rope. She learned to patch a tear in a saddle. She learned how to stand tall even when her knees felt like they might fold. And one afternoon, while brushing the old mare Bo called Mercy, Clara asked, "Why don't you have a family?" Bo shrugged, "Had one once." "What happened?" "They didn't stay." That was all he said. But Clara didn't press. She just nodded, then whispered into the horse's ear, like maybe she was trying to give the silence a place to go. But peace never stayed long out there. Not in a land like that. One morning, Bo rode into town for supplies. Clara stayed behind, tending to the hens and watching storm clouds gather low on the ridge. By dusk, Bo still hadn't returned, and by nightfall the knock came. 3 men, dirty coats, hard eyes. One wore a pistol low on his hip, another carried a ledger book. The third, tall, thin, and smiling like he knew something no one else did, held a scrap of paper folded neat. "You the one Fletcher's got stashed here?" the tall man asked, stepping onto the porch. Clara didn't answer. She stood in the doorway, hand tight on the edge. "We're looking for him, owes a debt." She didn't move. "Listen, sweetheart," the man said, smile widening. "We do mean you no harm, just need to settle something." Then his eyes drifted behind her, to the hearth, to the shelf with the hand-carved horse, to the quilt slung over the couch. A flicker of something cruel passed over his face. "Bo Fletcher ain't got nothing worth taking," he muttered, "except maybe you." Before she could shut the door, he stepped forward. But Clara didn't flinch this time, didn't back down. She met his eyes and said, clear and sharp, "You don't belong here." And that was when the shotgun cocked from behind the barn. The click echoed louder than thunder in that quiet, wide-open dusk. Clara didn't have to turn to know it was Bo. The men on the porch did. They froze, hands twitching toward hips, toward belts, but the one with the ledger took a step back first. Bo stood just beyond the barn's shadow, both hands steady on the barrel, his face unreadable in the half-light. The tall one, the smug one, lifted his hand slow, mocking-like, his grin still etched on his face. "Evenin', Bo," he said. "Didn't see you there." Bo didn't answer. He stepped forward, boots crunching gravel with purpose. Clara held her ground in the doorway, not daring to breathe. When Bo reached the porch, he didn't speak to the men, he spoke to her. "Inside." She didn't argue, just stepped back, shut the door, and stood there behind it, both palms flat against the wood like she could hold it closed through sheer will alone. But she didn't hear gunfire, didn't hear shouting, just muffled words exchanged low and firm and sharp. Then the creak of saddles, the stamp of hooves, and silence again. Bo came in without ceremony, set the shotgun down like it was nothing more than another tool. He didn't say what had been said, didn't explain why they came or what he owed. Clara didn't ask. But as he poured water into a tin cup and passed it to her, his hand lingered a second longer than usual on the rim. "They won't be back tonight," he said. She believed him, but she also knew it was only tonight he'd promised. After that night, something inside her shifted. Not fear. She'd lived with fear too long for it to surprise her anymore, but awareness. A realization that the world had its eye on Bo Fletcher. That peace was something they'd borrowed, not owned. The next morning, Clara helped mend fence rails without being asked. She brought tools before Bo even realized he'd need them. She took to watching the road from the hilltop with a slingshot tucked into her belt like it meant something. Bo didn't thank her, but he didn't stop her either. By the week's end, another letter came, folded neat. No stamp, just slipped under the gate like a snake in the grass. Bo read it at the table, jaw tight, eyes colder than the wind outside. When Clara asked, "What does it say?" Bo slid it into the fire. The paper curled, blackened, vanished. "Nothing worth keeping," he said. But that night he moved her from the barn to the house. No argument, no explanation. He set up a bedroll by the stove and said, "Too cold out there." But they both knew it wasn't the cold he was guarding against. Bo taught her how to shoot that winter. She was small, the rifle heavy, but she learned quick. Steady hands, steadier eyes. When she hit the bottle on the fence post clean through, Bo didn't smile, but he loaded another and nodded toward it like it was a test she hadn't finished yet. She asked him one morning while they shoveled snow off the porch, "Why are you alone out here?" Bo stopped, leaned on the handle and looked past the hills. "Didn't start that way." He never elaborated. Clara never pushed, but she thought about it often. What kind of people had left Bo Fletcher behind? And what kind of man stayed kind anyway? Then spring came, the ground softened, calves were born, grass returned in cautious shades of green. Clara turned 10. Bo didn't mention it, but she woke to a new pair of boots at the end of her bedroll, sturdy leather, her size exactly. No note, no ribbons, just usefulness wrapped in quiet care. And then, as if life couldn't let anything grow too long without pruning it, the past caught up. It happened fast, always did. Clara was fetching water when the horse came galloping down the ridge, one of the ranch hands from the neighboring ranch, face pale and eyes wild. Bo met him halfway to the porch. The man barely got the words out. "They're taking the ranch. You're next." That night Bo packed a satchel with coin and maps. He didn't speak while he worked, but Clara stood nearby like a sentinel. "They'll come here," she said. "They always do." "What are you gonna do?" He looked at her then, really looked at her. "What I have to." She watched him wrap his old revolver in cloth and tuck it beneath his coat. Then, softer, "I can help." "No," Bo said. "Your job is to stay alive." "I've done that already." "Then do it again." The next morning, the sky broke open with thunder that wasn't from any storm. Not from clouds, but from hooves and gunsmoke and men who wore law like a badge but practiced cruelty as trade. They didn't come at dawn, they came at mid-morning when the sun was high and the shadows short. 3 riders again, this time with more behind them. 15, maybe 20. Bo didn't run. He didn't hide. He stood on the porch, hands at his sides, Clara behind him in the window with the rifle already loaded. The same man led them, the tall one with the snake-oil smile. "Fletcher," he called out, "you've had your time. I'll take more if you let me." "Not up to me. Judge says the land don't belong to you no more." "The judge don't own the dirt, just signs the paper." "Same thing these days." Bo didn't respond, just stepped off the porch and started walking. It happened too fast for Clara to think. A shot. Then chaos. The men scattered, horses reared, dust exploded into the air. Clara fired once, twice, not sure if she hit anything but knowing Bo was down there alone. Then a scream, not hers, not Bo's. A horse collapsed. Someone else yelled for retreat. Another shot. Then silence. When it cleared, Bo was standing, blood on his sleeve. The tall man gone. 3 others slumped on the edge of the yard. Bo stumbled back toward the house, eyes glazed, legs weak. Clara ran to meet him halfway. "Your arm." "I know. You're bleeding." "Just the arm." "Bo." "I said it's fine." But it was. He collapsed that night, fevered, mumbled names she didn't recognize, called her by the wrong one once, Mara, and apologized when she corrected him, his voice cracking like old floorboards. She cleaned the wound as best she could, packed it with herbs from a book she barely understood, sat by his side for hours, days, listening to his breath like it might stop if she blinked too long. On the 3rd day he woke. "Still here?" he rasped. She nodded. "I thought I told you. To stay alive, I did." He closed his eyes again. "Smart girl. And then, softly, as if it hurt to say, "Sorry you had to grow up this way." She didn't cry, but her voice shook when she said, "I'm not sorry." He blinked up at her. "Why?" "Because I got to grow up with you." He didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched just once. That night the stars came out and the land was still. For the first time since she'd come, Clara opened the door wide and stepped outside alone. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, head high. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was standing her ground. The days that followed passed like stitches closing a wound, slow, deliberate, and laced with pain. Bo healed in inches, not strides. The bullet had gone clean through, but the fever had taken hold like a hand around his lungs. Clara nursed him the way he'd once taught her to tend the lambs born too soon, gently, but without pity. She cleaned his bandages in cold water from the creek, mashed willow bark for the pain, kept the fire alive even when sleep clawed at her eyes. She said little, because there was nothing that needed saying. This was her place now, and she would not let it fall to ruin just because the man who built it was lying still for a while. She fed the hens, milked the cow, patched the roof where the last windstorm had peeled back a sheet of tin. The rifle stayed slung across her back like a second spine. Every sound in the distance made her eyes lift, ears prick. But no one came, not for days. Bo sat up on the fifth morning, said nothing at first, just reached for the mug of tea Clara had left beside the bed. His hands were unsteady. She moved to help, but he shook his head, drank slow, then coughed so hard it bent him over and blood spotted the quilt. Clara didn't flinch. "You should rest more," she said plainly. Bo smirked, but it was weak. "You sound like someone I used to know." Was she right? She usually was. "Then lie back." He obeyed, didn't say another word for hours. That afternoon, while the wind stirred dust in lazy swirls outside, Clara heard the sound again, hooves, distant but deliberate. She moved to the window, just one rider this time. No smile, no coat too fine. This one wore sorrow like a second skin. He dismounted before reaching the house. Didn't call out, didn't announce himself, just approached slow, hat in hand. Clara stepped outside, rifle at her side, boots firm on the porch. The man stopped a few paces short. "I'm looking for Bo Fletcher." "You found him," Clara said, voice flat. The man nodded. "He inside." "He's sick." Long silence. "I'm not here to collect. I came to warn him." Clara narrowed her eyes. "Warn him about what?" "They're coming back," the man said. "The ones from before. They didn't take kindly to being turned away. Word is they're bringing more men, ones who don't ask questions. They want this land, don't care how they get it." Clara didn't move. "Why tell us?" The man's face twisted. "Because I owe Bo. Long time ago he helped me when he didn't have to. Saved my brother from hanging. Never asked for nothing in return." Another pause. "Tell him he needs to leave. He's got a day, maybe two." Then he turned, mounted his horse, and rode off without another word. Clara stood still until the dust settled. Then she went inside. Bo was sitting up again, struggling into his coat. Sweat beaded on his brow, but his jaw was locked with determination. "You heard all that?" she asked. "Enough. We could leave. This place is all I've got. You've got me." He looked at her then, really looked, like he was seeing the truth of it for the first time. "I'm not running," he said. "You can't even stand." "I'll find a way." Clara crossed her arms. "You said once this place don't belong to anyone, that the judge don't own the dirt, so why fight for it?" Bo's voice was quiet. "Because some things ain't about dirt, they're about dignity." They spent the next day in silence, preparing for something neither of them could name. Bo showed her how to patch a hole in the barn wall with old tin and wire. She showed him how she'd restrung the snare traps around the perimeter. There was an understanding between them now, not just of survival but of shared responsibility. This wasn't his home anymore. It was theirs. That night, as dusk wrapped its fingers around the hills, Clara sat by the hearth, carving a small figure from a block of pine. She didn't know what it was yet, just that her hands needed to shape something. Bo lay on the couch, half asleep, watching her through half-lidded eyes. "You remind me of someone," he said. "Who?" "My daughter." Clara's hand stilled. "I didn't know you had one." "I didn't, not for long." "What happened?" He closed his eyes. "Her mother left, took her with her, I never found out where. Years passed, letters stopped, I stopped looking." "Why?" "Because I figured if she wanted to be found, she'd let herself be." Silence. "Maybe she didn't have a choice," Clara said. Bo opened his eyes again. "Maybe." Then softer, "You think she'd be like me?" "No," Bo said, "she'd be like you." The fire crackled. The night deepened. Outside, the wind began to change, carrying with it the scent of dust, sweat, and trouble. They came at dawn. Clara was already on the porch when the first rider crested the ridge. She'd been awake all night, watching, waiting. Bo stood beside her, leaning on the cane he'd fashioned from a fence post, his face pale but set. 5 men, not 20, not 10, just 5, but they rode with the certainty of men who thought numbers didn't matter. The leader this time wasn't the tall man from before. This one was broader, meaner looking, with scars that spoke louder than any smile. He reined in at the gate, squinting toward the house. "Bo Fletcher." Bo stepped forward. "You got one chance to walk away," the man said. "This ain't your land no more." Bo didn't move. "This girl," the man gestured to Clara, "she's not your kin, not your responsibility. Let her go and we'll forget you were ever here." Bo's voice was low. "She's mine." The man's face twisted. "You sure about that?" Bo stepped down from the porch. "I said," he repeated, "she's mine." The leader glanced at his men. One shifted in his saddle. Another checked his pistol. Clara reached back, felt the rifle and raised it. "You got 5 seconds," she said. "After that I shoot." Laughter, then a pause, then. The first man lunged forward. Clara fired. The horse screamed. The man fell. The others drew weapons, but Bo raised his shotgun, aimed, and fired once, blowing the pistol clean from the second rider's hand. The third turned and ran. The fourth tried to rush the porch but was met by Clara, who cracked the butt of the rifle against his temple with a cry louder than thunder. Then it was over. Blood soaked the ground. One man groaned in the dirt. The others were gone. Bo leaned heavily against the porch post, sweat streaming down his face. Clara dropped the rifle, chest heaving. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," Bo said. "You did what had to be done." The man in the dirt reached for something. Clara moved to stop him, but Bo kicked the gun away before she could. "No more," he said. They buried the man out back, said nothing while they did it. There was no prayer, no cross, just dirt over dirt and the wind to carry it away. That evening Bo sat on the porch, Clara beside him. She didn't speak, just handed him a small carving, a figure, a girl with braids, thin arms, and a rifle slung over her shoulder. "I didn't know what to make," she said. Bo turned it over in his hands, eyes softening. "You made yourself," he said. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. He didn't respond, but she felt the weight of his hand on hers, steady and sure. And for the first time since she'd come, the wind didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a promise. The blood soaked into the earth like it had always been waiting for it. By morning, it had dried, turned to dust, vanished beneath a scatter of hoof prints and boot scuffs. Bo said nothing about it. Clara didn't either, but something had changed between them, less like a child and a man forced together by need, more like two halves of a life neither had planned for but both refused to give up now. He no longer watched her from the porch while she fetched water. He no longer reminded her to check the traps or keep the coop latched. He didn't need to. She did it all before he could even ask. The day after the shooting, they rose with the sun. Bo moved slower now. The wound in his arm healed in aches and twinges, but his legs stayed strong, his jaw steady. Clara cleaned the henhouse in silence. The barn cat followed her, mewing once at the dried blood near the stable, then wandered off. By afternoon, Bo had saddled Mercy and asked if she wanted to ride with him to the edge of the South Ridge. They hadn't been beyond the fence line in weeks. Clara didn't ask why. She just nodded and climbed up behind him, arms looped around his middle, her chin resting against his back as the mare carried them into the hills. The air up there smelled different, cleaner, maybe, or just untouched by what had happened below. They didn't speak for a long time, just looked out over the land as the sun dropped behind the canyons. When Bo finally broke the silence, it was with a voice rough from more than just the wind. "You know, I was gonna leave once." Clara shifted slightly, listening. "Back when things got hard, after the bank tried to take the ranch the first time, I had a wagon packed, horse hitched. I got as far as the county line." "What happened?" she asked. "I remembered what it looked like before I built the fences, before the barn, before the well, just dirt and weeds and rocks. I remembered thinking, if I can make something out of this, maybe I can make something out of myself." "Did you?" He smiled just barely. "Not the way I thought, but yeah, something." They stayed out there until the wind grew cold, then rode home in near darkness, the moon lighting their way like it was keeping an eye on them. Back at the ranch, Clara helped unsaddle Mercy, rubbed her down the way Bo had taught her. She didn't notice the man watching from the far fence line until the lantern light caught a glint of metal. She froze. "Bo," she said quietly, "there's someone." "I see him." He stepped out from the barn's shadow, rifle low but ready. The man didn't move, just leaned against the fence, arms folded. He was younger than Bo, but older than most who'd come sniffing around in recent months. Clean-shaven, no visible weapons. He looked like the kind of man who might have belonged behind a bank desk or a preacher's pulpit, if not for the sharpness in his eyes. "I'm not here to fight," he called, "just to talk." Bo didn't lower the rifle, then talk from there. "My name's Ellis Crow." The last name dropped like a stone into still water. Bo's grip on the rifle didn't change, but Clara felt the air go stiff around them. "What do you want?" "I'm not like the others, I'm not with them." "Then why come now?" Ellis took a slow breath. "Because I heard what happened, and because my brother, Matthew, he's not gonna stop." Clara flinched. Ellis caught the motion, his eyes softened. "I didn't come to finish what he started, I came to warn you." Bo said nothing. "He's making deals, paying men, telling lies to judges. He wants this land bad, says it was promised to our family 2 generations ago and it never should have ended up in yours." "It didn't end up in mine," Bo said. "I earned it." "I know," Ellis replied. "That's why I'm here." Bo hesitated, lowered the rifle a little. "You gonna help him?" "No." "You gonna help us?" Ellis looked at Clara for the first time, really looked. Saw the dirt on her cheeks, the way her arms were scraped from fence work, the thin scar near her temple that hadn't been there the last time anyone tried to take the ranch. He met her gaze, held it. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "Then you can go," Bo said. Ellis nodded once. "If I come back, it won't be with him." "See that you don't." Ellis tipped his hat and walked back to his horse, mounted without another word, and rode into the dark. Inside, Clara sat on the floor by the hearth, hands around a cup of lukewarm tea. "Who is he?" she asked. Bo took his time answering. "Matthew Crowley's brother. Their father used to run a rail company, had claims all over this valley back before the war. And the land, supposedly part of their expansion plans. But plans change. Rail never came this far. When their claims lapsed, homesteaders took over, folks like me. But they want it back. They want the name, the memory, something to put in a museum and call legacy. That's stupid. Bo chuckled low in his throat. Most things worth fighting over are. That night Clara didn't sleep. She lay awake listening to the wind, the creak of wood, the slow breathing of the man who'd somehow become everything between father and partner and tethered to a world she was just beginning to believe in. The threat hadn't passed, but they'd survived this long, together, and maybe that was the only truth that mattered. 3 days passed without trouble. Then came the letter. Bo found it nailed to the barn door. No envelope, no name, just 5 words scratched in hurried ink. The deed was never yours. Inside was a map, red circles, routes, times. Bo studied it for hours, his brow furrowed, jaw set. What does it mean? Clara asked. It means they're done playing nice. That afternoon he took her to town, first time in months. She rode in the wagon beside him, rifle tucked beneath the bench. Folks stared as they passed, some out of curiosity, others recognition. The sheriff tipped his hat but said nothing. The postmaster handed Bo a package without a word. Inside, old papers, yellowed and fragile. The original deed. The ink barely legible. Bo showed it to Clara, beneath a flickering lamp at the back of the general store. My name's not on this, she said. It wouldn't be. But yours is. Barely. So what do we do? Bo folded the paper carefully. We hold it close, and we stay ready. As they rode back to the ranch, a single rider tailed them from the ridge, far enough not to be seen unless you were looking. Clara was looking. Should I shoot? She asked. Bo shook his head. Not yet. Why? Because he wants to be seen, which means this is just the beginning. That night they found the chicken coop ransacked. No fox prints, just boot tracks. Bo stood over the ruin in silence. Clara stared down at a single feather stuck to the fence. What now? She asked. Bo didn't answer, just turned, walked back toward the house and lit the lanterns, every single one. A signal. A warning. A dare. And in the distance, someone lit one in reply. By dawn, the smoke from the other lantern had vanished, but its echo lingered in Bo's posture, in the way Clara caught him standing by the window long after the fire had died down. He said little that morning. His movements were slow but sharp, like every task he completed, checking the barn's padlocks, inspecting the hinges on the cellar trapdoor, was part of some larger ritual of bracing, a quiet preparing for siege. Clara didn't ask questions. She just moved beside him, matching his pace, dragging feed for the horses and triple-checking the rifle's chamber. The sky that day stayed overcast, the clouds low and bruised-looking, and though the wind never rose, the whole land felt tight with tension, like even the weather knew something was coming. They finished chores before noon. Clara scrubbed her hands raw at the pump and sat on the porch with an apple, boots muddy and braid falling loose over one shoulder. Bo stepped outside with the ledger he never let her read, the old worn book he kept locked in a chest under the bed. He sat beside her and opened it on his lap, not to write, just to look. What is that? She asked after a minute. Bo turned the page slow. Every dollar spent since I bought the ranch. Clara frowned. Why? He gave a half-smile, faint and a little sad. Because I thought if I kept track of everything I built, I'd never forget why I fought to keep it. She leaned closer. There were rows and rows of figures written in the tidy script of a younger Bo. Feed costs, fence wire, nails, tools, names she didn't recognize. Then near the back, 3 words written without numbers beside them. Eliza's girl, April. Clara's breath caught. That's me. Bo didn't answer right away, just closed the book and stared across the field. Your mother wrote me a letter once, told me she didn't have long, said you needed more than she could give. I didn't know what to say, didn't even know her well. She and we crossed paths once, briefly. But when you showed up, I figured I owed it to her to try. Why didn't you tell me? Didn't seem like it'd change anything. You were already mine. Clara looked down at her hands. I don't remember her face, not really, just her voice. Bo nodded slowly. That's the part that fades last. A sharp knock at the gate interrupted the moment. Bo stood quickly. Clara followed. A man waited beyond the gate, dressed in gray wool and black gloves. He wasn't armed, or if he was, it was hidden well. His boots were clean, too clean. I have a message, he said without preamble. Bo didn't move. Say it. The man's eyes shifted briefly to Clara, then back. Matthew Crowley has filed with the territorial court to seize this land under a contested deed clause. You've been summoned to appear within 5 days. Bo's jaw twitched, that all. The man hesitated. He also said to tell you, if you don't come to court, he'll come to you. Bo nodded once. You done now? The man turned without another word and walked away, his coat flapping behind him like a snake's tail. Clara watched him until he vanished around the bend. Then she turned to Bo. Are you going to court? Bo's silence answered her before his words did. No, he said, I'm not giving him the satisfaction. But what if that's the only way to stop him? I don't trust courts. Men like him build them. Clara's stomach twisted. Then what happens? Bo looked toward the hills. We wait, but not idle. That night they prepared. Bo showed her how to set traps with wire and bells, how to load buckshot without jamming the cartridge, how to vanish into the tree line and circle back without leaving a trail. Clara memorized every word, every motion, committing them to instinct. This was no longer about learning to survive. This was war. They set watches, one by day, one by night. They ate fast, spoke little, moved like soldiers, but no one came. The next day passed in eerie quiet, then the next, then the fourth. On the 5th day it rained. Heavy, pounding rain that turned dirt to soup and blurred the edges of everything. Clara sat on the porch beneath the awning, rifle across her lap, water running down her sleeves. Bo sat just inside, oil lamp burning low. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. When the knock finally came, it wasn't loud. Just one slow rap against the side door, not the front. The one by the barn, the one no one ever used. Bo rose instantly. Clara followed. He opened the door fast, gun raised. But it wasn't Crowley. It was Ellis again, soaked to the bone, hat in hand, blood trickling from his temple. I tried, he said. I swear I did. Bo didn't move. They're coming tonight, Ellis gasped. 30 men, maybe more, deputies, mercenaries. They're calling it legal. The judge signed off yesterday. He stumbled forward, nearly falling. Clara caught him by the elbow. Why tell us? Ellis's eyes were wild, desperate. Because he doesn't want the land anymore. He wants to burn it, wants to break you for saying no. Bo looked at Clara. Clara looked back, steady as she'd ever been. No words passed. They both understood. There was no saving the ranch now. Only saving what it meant. They moved like wind after that. Bo poured oil along the fence posts. Clara gathered kindling beneath the porch. Ellis, shaky but insistent, loaded the cellar with food, water, supplies, not to hide in, to fall back to. Just before sundown, Bo handed Clara the revolver, his revolver. She stared at it for a long second, then nodded once and slid it into her belt. Rain still fell, but lighter now. The sky burned orange behind the clouds, the sun fighting to leave a mark before it vanished. Then came the thunder, not from the sky this time, but from hooves. Dozens of them. Bo stepped outside, Clara beside him. Ellis in the barn's shadow, shotgun braced across the window ledge. They didn't speak. Didn't move. Just waited. The riders crested the ridge slow, in no rush. Matthew Crowley rode at the front, dry despite the rain, a long black coat snapping behind him like a preacher's robe. His face was the same, smug, sharp, untouched by the years that had worn down everything else. He pulled his horse to a stop at the gate. "Well," he called out, "you're either braver than I thought or dumber." Bo didn't answer. Matthew smiled. "You've got 10 seconds to walk away. You and the girl, leave the deed, leave the keys, leave the house. No one gets hurt." Bo's voice was flat. "You had your chance." Matthew's smile faded. "So did you." He raised one hand. Dozens of men dismounted in perfect silence. No shouts, no bravado, just movement. They weren't here to talk. "Clara," Bo said. "Yeah. Get ready." She didn't ask how. She already knew. They came like a tide. The first wave didn't shout, didn't charge. They just moved, slow and certain, boots squelching in the mud, hands on their weapons. Some carried rifles, others clubs. A few were wrapped in badges, but not one of them looked like a man of law. Hired guns, bought men. The kind that didn't need reasons, just orders. Clara knelt behind the split-rail fence, breath tight in her chest. Rain slid down her cheek, caught in the corner of her mouth like tears. Bo stood behind the porch post, shotgun raised, watching every movement like he was reading a language only he understood. In the barn, Ellis held his breath so long the air started to feel thin. Every second stretched like it might snap. And then it did. A single shot cracked through the dark, not from the ranch but from the tree line. One of the men on Crowley's side fell backward into the mud, screaming and clutching his leg. The rest froze. Bo didn't move. Clara didn't flinch. Ellis chambered the next round. That was all it took. Crowley barked something, nobody heard what, and the men surged forward. Some broke left toward the barn, others ducked low and pushed through the corral. Bo fired once, twice, and 2 of them dropped. Clara stood fast, rifle pressed tight to her shoulder, and picked off another as he tried to duck under the porch rail. His hat flew one way, his gun another. The mud swallowed them both. The barn doors rattled under fists. Ellis fired from the window, taking out the lead man with a shot that echoed all the way to the hills. He ducked as bullets punched through the boards behind him, scattering splinters across his face. He didn't stop, just reloaded, fired again and again until the hammer clicked dry. "Fall back," Bo called. Clara ran. Ellis barreled through the side door, met her near the well, both of them diving behind the broken wagon. Bo backed up to the porch, crouched beside the lantern barrel, and struck the match he'd tucked behind his ear. The oil caught fast. Flames raced along the rail line, leaping from post to post, smoke curling thick and dark into the sky. The fence blazed like a crown. The attackers pulled back momentarily, coughing and cursing. Crowley rode forward through the haze. "You want to burn your own home, Fletcher," he called. "Fine by me. I'll just build mine over the ashes." Bo stepped forward, eyes glowing orange in the firelight. "You can't buy roots, Matthew. Can't kill a memory with a torch." Crowley snarled and drew his gun. But someone else fired first. A shot rang out from the ridge above, clean and sharp. It struck the ground beside Crowley's horse, sending the animal rearing. Crowley cursed, tried to control it, but the beast bolted sideways, nearly throwing him. Clara looked up, blinking through the smoke, and saw them. Figures on the ridge, 5, no 7, maybe more, shadows on horseback, rifles braced across saddles. One raised a hand. Bo squinted into the distance. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Neighbors." Clara blinked. "What?" Bo gave a single tight nod. "Men I helped once, folks who owed me nothing." Another shot rang out, this time taking a rifle clean from one of Crowley's men. Panic spread like oil on water. The tide began to turn. Ellis ran for the house. Clara followed. Bo held the line on the porch, firing until his shotgun clicked empty. He didn't reload, just raised a hammer from beside the barrel and slammed it into a lantern, sending glass and oil and fire crashing into the mud, flaring up between him and the last of the invaders. The flames bought them seconds they used. Inside, Clara slammed the door and bolted it. Bo grabbed his revolver and turned to Ellis. "Take the cellar," he said. "I can hold here." "No," Bo cut in. "You're wounded and she needs cover if it comes to that." Ellis hesitated, then nodded. Clara grabbed a sack of shells from the mantel and followed him to the trapdoor. They didn't speak. No time. Outside, the sound shifted. Shouting, horses screaming, gunfire echoing in bursts and lulls. Then through it all, the unmistakable bellow of Matthew Crowley. "Burn it down." Bo's stomach turned. He ran to the back room, tossed open the cabinet, grabbed the rain tarp, yanked open the back door. Flames were already crawling up the hay piles in the barn. The shed was burning too. Smoke rolled over the grass like fog. Clara saw it from below. The cellar had a thin window slit near the ground, and through it she saw the flicker. She pushed open the trapdoor and climbed up. Bo turned when he saw her. "Get back down. You'll burn with it. Better that than let him win." She grabbed his wrist, pulled hard. "No, if you die, all of this dies too. Everything you built, everything we've become." He didn't move. So she shoved him. Hard. Bo stumbled backward, crashing into the wall. Clara yanked the rifle from his hands and fired into the air. Twice, 3 times. Then she shouted, "Matthew Crowley, you want to win. Come take it yourself." There was silence. Then hoofbeats. He rode up slowly, gun raised. Clara stepped onto the porch, soaked in smoke, hair clinging to her face. Behind her, Bo stood, blood trailing from a cut above his brow. Crowley halted, gun still steady. "You've got nothing left," he said coldly. "Your land's burning, your people are scattered, your name means nothing." Clara raised the revolver. "You're wrong," she said. "This place means something, because we bled for it, because we built it, and because we won't let you erase it." Crowley cocked the hammer. "Last chance, girl." Bo's voice was quiet but thunderous. "You shoot her, you start a war you can't finish." And then, gunfire from the ridge. A single shot. Crowley's hat flew off his head. He flinched, turned. That was all Clara needed. She lunged forward, swung the butt of the revolver and cracked it against his temple. He toppled from the saddle, hit the mud with a grunt. Men shouted, hooves scattered. Within minutes, the mercenaries were gone. Scattered like leaves on wind. Ellis limped forward, rifle raised, but there was no need. It was over. Smoke still rose from the barn, but the rain had begun again, steady, soaking the flames, hissing them into steam. Bo stood in the doorway, Clara beside him, both of them watching the land they nearly lost come back to life beneath the ash. They dragged Crowley to the woodshed and tied him up with baling wire. He didn't wake for hours. When he did, he didn't speak. He just stared at Clara like he was seeing her for the first time. "You're just a girl," he rasped. "No," she said, "I was not anymore." The sheriff came 2 days later, took Crowley without argument, said nothing about the fire, just handed Bo a folded paper new deed, signed, sealed, witnessed. "You earned it," was all he said. Bo didn't thank him, just nodded. That night they buried what was left of the barn. Clara stood beside the grave of wood and memory, tears streaking her face. Bo didn't try to stop them, didn't offer comfort, just stood beside her. "You're still here," he said. She nodded. "So am I." Then he took her hand. And for the first time she didn't flinch. The morning after the storm, the land looked raw. The barn was gone, just a charred skeleton of beams and scorched earth. Smoke still curled from its edges, faint and gray like breath from a dying fire. The chicken coop was flattened, the shed half salvageable if they were lucky, but the house stood. The porch rail still creaked beneath Beau's boots. The well still gave water. The windows still glowed when Clara lit the lamps. They hadn't spoken much since the night they broke Crowley. Words felt too small. Beau sat on the porch with a mug of black coffee, staring out over the burned fields. Clara stood just inside, elbow-deep in flour, kneading dough with arms that had grown stronger than she'd ever imagined they could. Her braid hung low over her shoulder. Her cheeks were pink from heat, her fingers dusted white. She didn't hum, didn't whistle, just worked. Steady. Focused. Ellis had left at dawn, refusing the hot bread Clara offered, and instead tipping his hat with eyes that lingered a moment too long on the ruin they'd left behind. He said nothing about where he was headed, just that there were men in the territory who still needed to be told that the land had chosen its people, not the other way around. Clara watched him ride off until he vanished behind the tree line. Beau hadn't asked him to stay. He hadn't needed to. This fight had never been Ellis's. He'd shown up anyway. By midday, the air turned warm, the kind of warmth that felt unfamiliar after so many weeks of cold and rain and smoke. The wind held the scent of new grass pushing through ash. The ranch didn't look like itself, but maybe that was the point. Maybe it was shedding what it had been, becoming something else. Something harder. Something truer. Clara sat beside Beau after lunch, hands scraped and bandaged from pulling nails out of the barn's remains. "Do you ever think," she said slowly, "that the worst thing that happened to you was the thing that saved you?" Beau didn't look at her. "Sometimes I think the worst thing that happened to me is still waiting." Clara's brow furrowed. "You don't believe that?" He shrugged. "Doesn't matter if I do or don't. Life doesn't wait for belief." They sat in silence a while. The wind played with the corner of the tarp covering the tool shed. From far off a hawk cried. Beau looked over at her. "You know the first time I held you?" Clara blinked. "No. Your mother handed you to me like you were something fragile, but not precious. Like she didn't know if you'd make it through the week, but it'd be easier if someone else was holding you when you didn't." Clara stared at him. "She didn't want to leave you," Beau said. "But she was dying, and she was proud, too proud to beg, so she gave you to me the only way she could, like it was a deal, like you were payment." Clara looked down at her hands. "But I knew," he added quietly, "that it wasn't a trade. It was a trust. She gave you to me because she hoped I could become what she couldn't." Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "And did you?" Beau turned his face back to the horizon. "That's not my question to answer." Later that afternoon, they began clearing the field where the barn had stood. Beau carried the larger beams away, stacking what could be saved. Clara hauled debris into a growing pile, her shirt clinging to her back, arms slick with sweat. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. There was something holy in the labor, something cleansing. When the sun dipped low, Beau finally spoke. "I want to build it better." Clara glanced up from where she knelt, pulling rusted nails from a scorched plank. "Stronger," he said. "Bigger, room for more." "More what?" Beau straightened, wiping his brow with his sleeve. "More life." She nodded once, then returned to her work. The next morning he found her in the kitchen, blueprinting on a scrap of canvas with a bit of charcoal. She'd drawn the frame of the barn as it used to be, then scratched through it and started over, this time with a loft, a second stall, a feed room, a ladder leading to an upper loft for hay or maybe something else. Beau studied the sketch. "It's good," he said. Clara didn't look up. "Not done." "You think about architecture?" "No," she said. "I think about staying." He took that in. She met his gaze. "I don't want to leave. Not just because of what happened, not because I feel sorry for you. I want to stay because I've never been more myself than I am here." Bo exhaled slow. "Then it's yours too." The blueprint stopped between them, a bridge. 3 days later, a wagon arrived from town, brought supplies, mail, a letter addressed to Bo Fletcher and Miss Clara James. Inside, stamped with the court seal, was confirmation that Crowley's claims had been dismissed. The judge who'd signed the new deed had included a single line in his ruling: "Justice favors the hands that tend the land, not the ones that covet it." Bo tucked the letter in the ledger. Clara added a new entry beneath it: Clara James March. It was the first time she'd signed her full name, and it felt like planting something. Weeks passed. The new barn rose slowly, frame by frame. Neighbors came by, unasked, bringing hammers, nails, wood, bread. One man, a widower with 5 sons, offered up his oldest to help for a season. The boy was gangly, soft-spoken, and worked like he was trying to outrun his own silence. Clara taught him how to carry beams without splinters. Bo taught him to respect the saw. By the end of the month, he called Clara ma'am and Bo sir, and they didn't correct him. At night, the lamps glowed from every room in the house. The hearth burned even when it wasn't cold. Bo built a table large enough for 10. Clara embroidered a curtain for the kitchen window. They planted beans and corn where the coop used to be. They scattered wildflower seed across the ash of the old barn. And one morning, Clara found Bo at the fence line, holding a bundle wrapped in old flannel. "What's that?" she asked. He turned. In his arms was a calf, barely 2 days old, orphaned, shivering. "Found her in the ravine," he said. "No sign of the mother." Clara held out her arms. He passed the calf to her. "Maybe she was left for a reason," Clara murmured. Bo looked at her. "Or maybe," he said, "she's here for one." They named the calf Hope. They raised her on milk and love and mornings full of sun. And still, Bo kept the ledger. But now, beneath every cost and receipt, there was a second line, a softer line. Sunlight on the porch free. Hope 3 days old priceless. Laughter at supper immeasurable. Clara read it when he wasn't looking. She never told him she knew. And when spring came, real spring, green and humming and full of bees, they stood together on the edge of their land and looked out at all of it. "Do you think it'll ever be easy?" Clara asked. Bo thought a long time before answering. "No, but it'll be ours." They didn't speak again that day. But as they turned back toward the house, the porch light flickering on as the sun dipped behind the hills, Bo slipped his hand into hers, and Clara didn't let go. Not that night. Not ever. And the ranch stood behind them, stronger than before, full of scars, yes, but not broken. Never broken.